No!
But you invited me.
You've seen the guest list. They are all like 4-5 or above. They are going to freak at a 2-6.
But this is just fantasy, right? Not in China. The government is building a social credit system to rate the trustworthiness of 1.4 billion people.
I see there's one standby seat on another plane leaving tonight. That's reserved for members of our Prime Flight program. You gotta be a 4.2 or over to qualify.
Oh, I'm a 4.2.
People are scored out of 5 by everyone they interact with, and their public rating determines where they can live, who they can date, and how they travel. But this is just fantasy, right? Not in China. The government is building a social credit system to rate the trustworthiness of 1.4 billion people. Every citizen starts with 100 points linked to their ID card or social media. If you do something good, like volunteer at a charity, recycle trash, donate blood, or send positive energy messages on social media about the country, your score goes up. If you do something bad, like jaywalk, cancel a reservation, leave a dishonest review, or you are even friends with someone with a low rating on social media, your score drops.
In order to restore calm, I'm invoking my authority as airport security to dock you 1 full ranking point as a punitive measure. This is a temporary measure.
High-scoring citizens may get free gym memberships, cheaper public transport, and shorter wait times in hospitals. Low-scoring citizens may have travel restrictions, slower internet speeds, and restricted access to restaurants.
In 2019, a court in China's Henan province punished a 9-year-old girl for not being able to pay her dead father's debt of $84,000. Soon the court lowered her social credit score, and that automatically restricted her from traveling, accessing the internet, and even blocked her from entering her school. But why are we talking about China? We live in a constitutional republic that protects the freedom of every American, right? A lot has changed over time, you see. For many decades, the Democratic Party has been looking for opportunities to rule over people as per their own terms. Historically speaking, the 7th President of the United States, Andrew Jackson, who is one of the main propounders of the Democratic Party, wanted to abolish the Electoral College that actually allows the citizens of today to vote and choose the president of their own choice. Furthermore, Jackson was also against the independent Supreme Court that has served us for centuries in protecting our constitutional rights. And it is through abolishing these significant pillars of the government that the Democratic Party could rule over the citizens. So when the Democrats came to understand the power of big tech from China when it comes to controlling the lives of people through AI, it turned out to be the perfect opportunity in fulfilling their centuries-old objective. However, we must not forget that the attack on the Capitol building was the result of built-up anger from patriots who were fed up with the constant suppression of their freedom and constitutional rights at the hands of Democrats and rhinos alike, which is why they could not afford to see Trump lose and allow this country to fall back into the hands of the Democrats. You just need to pay attention to the current state of affairs to clearly see that their fears of the future in a Democratic-controlled government was more than justified.
You'll never take back our country with weakness. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
We got to stop this steal from happening because if we don't, nobody's ever going to vote again. There's not going to be any integrity in our voting systems.
We're not going to take it anymore. This is our country.
Now, if you remember the infamous Disinformation Governance Board recently introduced by the Department of Homeland Security, then you should already be prepared for the worst.
The Biden administration is facing fierce backlash for convening a group called the Disinformation Governance Board.
How are we ever going to come to an agreement on what is disinformation so you can police it on social media?
Homeland Security recently rolled out the board, giving few details on how it will function, saying it will examine disinformation about threats, but will not have operational power and will not monitor U.S. citizens. Civil liberties advocates are questioning the idea.
We can't even agree what disinformation is.
We become involved when disinformation poses a threat to the security of our country.
I wonder, when you say that we have operational control of the border, is that definitionally disinformation? Because from a lot of our perspectives, we don't believe that is true.
I think it's a terrible idea. It communicates to the world that we're going to be spreading propaganda within our country. It's an awful idea.
Because according to the documents released by Senator Josh Hawley, through the help of a whistleblower, the Department of Homeland Security officials on April 28th conducted a meeting with the Twitter officials where they decided to share government data with the Twitter company. Why, you ask? So that it can help them fulfill their mission of censoring people's views that are not in line with the Democratic Party's preferred narrative.
The people that the Biden administration thinks are the real threat to America, it's not the drug cartels, it's not foreign threats, it's you, it's the American people. Yeah. If you have questions about COVID, if you have questions about COVID masks, if you have questions about the COVID vaccine, this administration wanted you to be monitored. This disinformation board was set up to go after you. That's what the documents say.
They talk about the need for this disinformation board to monitor and to counter so-called disinformation about the COVID vaccine, about people who are raising question about the efficacy of masks, about people who are raising questions about the origins of COVID, and on, frankly, this administration's concerted efforts to mislead the American public about its own attempts to track and censor and, frankly, punish American speech, which is deeply antithetical.
As our behavior is currently being influenced by social media, such as Twitter, the Democratic Party realizes that if they could utilize the algorithm of Twitter, they could have an efficient way to control our lives. Here, let me give you an example. Twitter can stop showing tweets related to Republicans to the majority of users. And when someone posts a tweet about a Democrat, it can easily throw that tweet in front of the majority to influence their decisions. Not to mention, they could just shut you right down. This I've experienced myself. So to stop our lives from becoming a sci-fi movie and maintain our freedom the way America was created, let's understand how the CCP controls their citizens with a social credit system, what countries are adopting it, and how close American citizens are from being controlled by such an evil system. Furthermore, we will also show you how famous brands like Amazon are already in the process of controlling our lives through the Internet of Things, so that you can prepare yourself from today to not fall into the trap of an inhumane CCP-style social credit system. So imagine a society where you're rated by the government on your trustworthiness. Your citizen score follows you everywhere you go. A high score gives you fast access to internet services or a fast-track visa to Europe. However, your score decreases if you make a political post online that contradicts the government's official narrative on current events. For example, have a look at this disturbing story of a Chinese journalist, Liu Hu, who has been blacklisted by the CCP social credit system for raising his voice against government corruption activities. Soon after getting blacklisted, Liu discovered that his name was on the list of dishonest persons, which eventually made him ineligible to buy a plane ticket, to buy property, and even from traveling on certain train lines he regularly uses. Liu argued, there was no file, no police warrant, no official advance notification. They just cut me off from the things I was once entitled to. What's really scary is there's nothing you can do about it. You can report to no one. You're stuck in the middle of nowhere. As no company in China, as we know, is truly private, the Chinese government utilizes the quote-unquote private companies to help them police their population. The CCP constantly watches memes on social media and online shopping data to calculate the score. If you commit a crime, even by merely jaywalking, facial recognition algorithm match video footage to your face, to your photo in a national ID database, and in a few hours, the police will show up at your door. It might sound eerie and dystopian, but this police state that utilizes a social credit system already exists in modern China. So the reality is, if we don't realize that there is a war happening right now to take American freedoms away, then it's only a matter of time until large corporations and the government implement a police state, just like China. Here's what is actually happening on the ground.
Everywhere she goes, Ouyang Haoyu is followed. What she buys, how she behaves, is tracked and scored to show how responsible and trustworthy she is. It's called the social credit system, and in one version now being tested, a person's reputation is scored on a scale of 350 to 950. And scores are docked for things like littering, a messy yard, gossip, even jaywalking. And information collectors like Zhou Ai-ni are paid to report on their neighbors. Her quota, 10 entries a month. Being discredited makes it hard to get a job or put kids in top schools.
China's algorithmic surveillance system relies on the security organs of the Communist Party state to filter, collect, and examine staggering volumes of data flowing across the internet. According to Freedom House, China's level of internet freedom is already the worst on the planet.
China's social credit system. To images gathered from China's 200 million surveillance cameras and facial recognition software. By the way, do the math. That is one surveillance camera for every 7 citizens. The government basically divvied out 1,000 points to its citizens, and they're kept by local Communist Party officials. This is their baseline. It's very ironic that in China, a communist country, people are rated based on their credit worthiness, right? So they have this tier system, a caste system, basically, that puts people really high up or really low. The highest tier is called AAA. Of course, that is the best. It is called model of credit worthiness. If you have 1,050 points or higher, so this means you went above the baseline, you get some benefits, right? The second tier is called AA, or exceptional credit worthiness. This is basically the same benefits of AAA. There's no difference, but I'm feeling like if you are missing that extra A, if you're just a AA, I would feel super subpar to my neighbor. If he's a AAA, I'm only a AA, but then I'd probably throw in like an excuse related to battery size to like make myself feel better. Anyway, the next level is the A credit worthiness, and this one comes in 3 different flavors. You get A+, A, and A-. So this is when you're kind of hovering around, you know, what they divvied out in the beginning. These are your benefits. You get to be entered on a list to be used as a model in publicity. So you give the ability to the government to use you as a model citizen for publicity. Wow, awesome. You get priority in school enrollment and other social assistance. So this is scary. This is a few Chinese social programs that they actually have. You have to be an A to kind of get priority assistance for these things. And school enrollment is supposed to be completely non-competitive in terms of what schools you go to outside of your grades. So now it's changing to that if you are not a good model citizen, your kids don't get to go to good schools, which is terrifying. You get preferential care in employment, social assistance, and you get preference over equally qualified competitors in promotion or retention. So this is in jobs and work and things like this. And by the way, I'm not talking about some like secret speculation. These are the official documents that say this. If you're an A, you get treated as a better person. Next is relatively creditworthy. So that's when you've dipped below 1,000, right? You're locked into it for 2 years. And what happens now is if you're in a B tier, you're probably going to get lectures and visits from people, the government officials, and they're going to tell you how you can improve your score, right? But you're going to be locked in there in like probation for 2 years. Now, when you drop down to a C, when you're at like 600 to 849 points, you're locked in there for 3 years before you can move up to a B even. More visits from officials. They're going to be watching you, making sure you're on good behavior. They're going to be scrutinizing you in daily life. You're going to be on a list now. Now, this list won't go to the full public with all of your information, address, age, what you did wrong, blah, blah, but it will go to other government officials. So they said it will go to a limited audience. When you drop to the lowest tier, and this is D, this is called not creditworthy. Basically, it's like, if you talk about Indian caste system, it's the untouchables. You're locked into level D for 5 years, right? So this is, when you're locked into D, you're talking about the officials are coming to visit you all the time. They can cancel any government funding that you have, so not just temporarily suspend it. We're talking about canceling the government subsidies. You go on a blacklist, and this is public. All Ds will go public, so publicly disclosing the information on their untrustworthiness. They can revoke all of your titles. So if you had a PhD or scientific discoveries, you'll have that erased, right? You can't get a loan, and you can actually lose your job over this. So if it's tied to what happened, like what you did to be untrustworthy according to the government, they can actually completely get rid of your qualifications and actually strip away your job.
Now compare this with the recent statement made by the president of Alibaba Group at the World Economic Forum 2022.
We're developing, through technology, an ability for consumers to measure their own carbon footprint. What does that mean? That's where are they traveling? How are they traveling? What are they eating? What are they consuming on the platform? So, individual carbon footprint tracker. Stay tuned, we don't have it operational yet, but this is something that we're working on.
Policymakers worldwide are also increasing investing in a particular digital technology with transformative potential: biometric identification systems. Now, biometric IDs are identifications that uses biometric information of individuals to record, identify, and verify their identity. These IDs use traits such as fingerprints, eye retina, iris scanning, voice recognition, facial pattern, and body movement as biometric verification measures. More countries around the globe have already announced plans to start enrollment for such IDs in the coming months and years. Major countries, including America, are constantly getting influenced by the Chinese Communist Party's social credit system, and they can't wait to get their hands on our privacy. In June 2019, the World Economic Forum, in collaboration with the Government of Canada, the Netherlands, and industry partners, has already launched KTDI, Known Traveler Digital Identity Initiative, that not only helps in traveling across countries without passports, but also empowers the government to have stronger control on citizens' personal information, just like China.
With the number of international arrivals expected to grow 50% by 2030, travellers need seamless ways to cross borders that also protect national security while protecting their personal data. The Known Traveller Digital Identity, or KTDI, is a public-private collaboration that enhances security efforts while enabling a connected journey for today's international traveller. The KTDI is the only global travel initiative of its kind. Travellers can share documentation and information from one verified identity with partners including government authorities, airlines, and hotels. Biometrics will link the digital identity with the physical person and their national identity document.
The European Union has launched a European Union Data Governance Act, which aims at sharing the entire data of the European Union to data intermediaries, a kind of middleman between those who wish to make their data available and those who seek to leverage that data. The same is agreed by the United Kingdom, which believes data intermediaries can empower both people and businesses in data sharing activity. As secure as it may seem, it should be remembered that these data intermediaries will be regulated ultimately at the hands of the government and not the citizens. And so much personal data stored in one place also increases the risk of cyber attack. And thanks to Edward Snowden, we already know that the CIA and FBI have a massive database on every American citizen. Like I said before, it's just a matter of time before the US government will use its power to gain complete control of its citizens.
You might have bought the phone, but whoever hacked it, they're the one who owns it. Any device that's on here, you can operate independently.
So it's true you can get into the phone and turn the camera off?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there a way you can tell if your phone's been hacked?
Perhaps the most terrifying thing is if your phone had been hacked, you would never know.
And if you look around, it is already happening in your home. Most of us already have smartwatches, Alexa, and Google smart speakers. Whatever we say, whatever commands we give to these smart devices, that data directly goes to the parent company, where it is then stored and used to sell us more by grooming our behavior so that we can be more predictable consumers that ultimately will help companies like Amazon make higher profits.
Alexa, do you know everything?
No, but I'm always learning.
If Alexa is always learning, that's because it's designed to start listening when prompted by keywords. And when it's listening, it's also recording. So what exactly happens to those recordings? In May, Delaware Senator Chris Coons requested answers, writing, "I am very concerned by reports that text transcriptions of these audio records are preserved indefinitely on Amazon's servers." This week, Amazon wrote back, saying we retain customers' voice recordings and transcripts until the customer chooses to delete them. Amazon says it stores this data in order to improve the performance of its voice assistants.
But she hadn't actually even bought that many things from Amazon. Just looking at them was enough.
There were 50 columns for every click. You see not only the second I clicked on something and what kinds of products I looked at, but also where I was, what telecoms provider I was using, and which web page I was coming from.
She hadn't watched Amazon TV and she didn't have Alexa at home, but Amazon still compiled a lot of data about her.
Amazon even knew when I was on vacation because of where the searches were made. Also, some people use Amazon Prime as their main streaming service too. So when you add it all together, it can create a gigantic personality profile that goes into frightening detail about someone.
Information about our customers is an important part of our business. We use data to make shopping at Amazon and our products better and more convenient for our customers.
Here's another example of people who are still naive to the potential risk of having a device like Alexa in your home. In 2018, a woman from Portland, Oregon, discovered that Alexa recorded the conversation between her and her husband without their permission, and also sent the same recording to a random person in their contact list. And you need to remember, this data can easily be shared with the government or the FBI to track our behavior. Amazon is legally obligated to adhere to the laws of the country it operates in. And if the law compels them to share your data, they will. And this is how smart devices and the government will control your entire body in the future. They are planning a depression headset, electronic tattoo, Bluetooth connector diaper for kids, tooth-mounted sensor, and even a fertility measurement device. Now, back in January 2021, a major attempt to implement a version of the CCP social credit system in America was already made by the January 6th House Oversight Committee chairwoman, Carolyn Maloney, in which she directed the FBI to investigate whether Parler, a conservative social media platform, played a significant role in the Capitol breach or not. And when the representatives James Comer and Greg Steube argued that Facebook and Twitter should also be investigated with Parler, you guessed it, there was no response from Maloney. Now, in the same month, Senator Josh Hawley warned the citizens to take a stand by arguing, everyone knows what a credit score is, but social credit scores are new. They are the latest corporate import from communist China. And they are the latest form of cancel culture in this country. As corporate monopolies and the left team up to shut down speech they don't like and force their political agenda on America. For those who still believe in free speech and the First Amendment, this is the time to take the stand. The very First Amendment of the Constitution clearly says that Congress makes no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting its free exercise. It protects freedom of speech, the press, assembly, and the right to petition the government for a redress of grievances. However, keeping in mind what is happening in the country, it seems the Democrats are ensuring that the Constitution should only remain as something from the past. Lastly, China's experiment with digital surveillance creates a new threat to freedom of expression on the internet and other human rights. Citizens already refrain from independent or critical words for fear of their data will be read or their movements recorded and penalized by the government. And that is precisely the point of the program. So what happens in China will not stay in China. Its repressive technologies have diffused into many other authoritarian regimes worldwide. Other organizations are attempting to bring a New World Order form of control into the West. World Economic Forum, WHO, and the IMF, to name a few. What is happening in China should alarm democracies worldwide. We must monitor and denounce this sinister move towards an Orwellian world.